My parents removed me from their lives over the course of a dinner, treating me like a failed investment they were ready to write off. I stood on their porch with a deactivated phone and my grandfather's worn silver card, completely powerless. That changed later, when a bank manager stared at his screen and quietly repeated the number $1.2 billion. In that moment, the balance of power shifted. My parents had not simply removed me from the family home, they had removed the wrong person. My name is Emery Castillo, and I should have known that an invitation to dinner from my parents was never just about eating together. In the Caldwell household, calories were measured, language was deliberate, and affection always came with conditions. I drove my sedan up the winding driveway of their estate outside Charlotte, the gravel crunching under my tires like something breaking. The house rose against the evening sky, a sprawling neoclassical structure my father, Sterling Caldwell, proudly called his legacy. To me, it felt more like a very expensive confinement. I was 33 years old. I worked as a senior risk management compliance officer at Marston Ridge Solutions. I had my own apartment, my own routine, and a professional reputation for identifying structural risks before they became disasters. Still, as I parked and walked toward the tall oak doors, I felt myself shrink. I checked my watch. 7 o'clock exactly. In this house, punctuality was not optional. It was expected. The maid let me inside with a quiet, sympathetic glance. As she took my coat, I noticed the precise chill of the air, set to 68 degrees, and the scent of lemon polish mixed with old wealth. The dining room table was empty. The long mahogany surface gleamed, holding only a crystal water pitcher, 3 glasses, and a thick leather folder placed directly in front of my father's seat. My mother, Diane Caldwell, stood by the window, slowly turning a glass of Chardonnay. She didn't look at me when I entered. She wore a silk dress that likely cost more than my car, her posture stiff, her blonde hair styled into perfect stillness. My father sat at the head of the table, fingers pressed together, composed and distant, like a carved figure in a tailored suit. "Sit down, Emery," he said evenly. I took the chair to his right. "Where's dinner?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "We'll eat after we finish business," my mother replied, finally turning. Her eyes moved over my blazer and slacks with familiar judgment. "There's an issue with Meridian Group. A short-term cash flow problem." I looked at my father. "You brought me here for work. I handle fintech compliance, not real estate." "We need a signature," Sterling said, sliding the folder across the table. "And we're closing a bridge loan tomorrow morning. The bank requires an independent risk verification from a certified officer. You're qualified, and your family." I hesitated. Conflict of interest was immediately clear. Still, under his steady gaze, I opened the folder. It was a standard disclosure packet for a $45 million loan. I scanned the pages methodically until page 12 stopped me. "Dad," I said carefully, "this valuation lists Meridian Harbor at $80 million, based on 90% occupancy." "That's correct," he replied. "The foundation isn't even poured," I said, "and the anchor tenant withdrew 3 months ago. Without them, occupancy is closer to 20%. This valuation isn't realistic." "It reflects future potential," my mother said, placing a hand on my father's shoulder. "Don't be difficult." I flipped to the cash flow statements. "You've listed Parkside rental income as active revenue. That property is under renovation. It's empty. Projected income can't be reported as liquid assets. That's misrepresentation." The silence that followed was heavy. My father remained calm. "The lenders understand the structure," he said. "This loan bridges us for 6 months. We just need a certified officer to approve the methodology." "You want me to sign off on numbers I know aren't accurate," I said. "If this fails, I'm liable. This isn't a clerical issue. It's fraud. You're inflating assets by at least 200%. Sterling leaned forward. "We're asking for loyalty. Without this loan, other debt clauses activate. We could lose the estate. So you're asking me to commit a felony to protect the house," I said. My mother slammed her glass down. "Enough. You always act superior. Do you have any idea what we sacrificed for your education? For that job, you're ungrateful." I closed the folder and slid it back. "I'm not signing." My father's expression hardened. "I'll ask once more. Pick up the pen." I stood, my legs shook, but I stayed upright. "No, I won't destroy my career so you can delay reality." He stood as well, towering, used to obedience. "If you walk out without signing," he said quietly, "you are no longer part of this family." I looked at my mother. Her glare was sharp. "Without us, you're nothing but a mid-level employee in a cheap suit." The insult stung, but the realization hurt more. I had never been a daughter to them, only a contingency plan. "Then I'm nothing," I said, turning toward the door. I heard my father say one word: "Now." When I reached the door, it was locked. I opened it and stepped outside. A suitcase sat on the porch, my old one, packed. They had expected this. The door shut behind me. The deadbolt clicked. I knocked. No answer. I reached for my phone. No service. A recorded voice confirmed it had been deactivated by the primary account holder. They had cut it within minutes. I dragged the suitcase to my car and drove to a nearby gas station. The ATM denied access and kept my card. My credit card was declined at the counter. They weren't just removing me, they were erasing me. I drove until I had to pull over. My phone lit up with a voicemail routed through my work app. My mother's voice was cold. "You've made a serious mistake. No one hires a daughter who betrays her parents. By tomorrow, everyone will know how unstable you are." Then another alert appeared. An email from HR at Marston Ridge Solutions. Emergency disciplinary hearing. Conflict of interest complaint. 8 a.m. They had moved quickly. This wasn't just punishment. It was prevention. I was being fired for an ethics violation, and no one would believe me if I spoke out about the falsified valuations. I would be cast as the disgruntled, fired daughter, and my father would be the victim. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. The sadness that had gripped me earlier was giving way to a cold, hard clarity. I glanced at my purse on the passenger seat. Tucked in a hidden zipper of my wallet was a small, tarnished piece of silver. It wasn't a credit card or a debit card. It was a simple metal trinket my grandfather, Walter, had given me 3 days before he died. He had pressed it into my hand when my parents were out of the room. "For when the wolves come," he rasped. "And they will come, Emery." I'd kept it as a keepsake, never tested its use. I didn't know if it was active, but now, as my life collapsed around me, it was the only thing I possessed that Sterling and Diane Caldwell didn't control. I started the car. I had to move forward. I had to survive the night, and then confront the wolves. The next morning, the sun hit the glass facade of Marston Ridge Solutions. Usually, it made me feel accomplished, a reminder of what I'd built. Today, it felt like an interrogation light. I arrived at 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the meeting my email had mandated. My stomach knotted. I approached the security turnstiles, which I had passed daily for 5 years. My ID badge produced a low, buzzing noise. Red light. Access denied. I tried again. Same result. "Excuse me, Miss Castillo." Ralph, the head of lobby security, said quietly. He was a man I had known for years, whose granddaughter's Girl Scout cookies I'd bought by the crate. Now, he avoided eye contact. "I've been instructed to escort you directly to human resources. You are not allowed on operational floors." Humiliating, but I held my posture. This was the first move. My father hadn't just cut my phone. He had severed my professional lifeline. Riding the freight elevator to the 20th floor, silence enveloped us. When the doors opened, Karen Vance, HR director, waited. Beside her was the company's external legal counsel. This was not a conversation. It was a formal procedure. "Come in, Emery," Karen said, without offering a seat or coffee. I sat anyway. She slid a single sheet of paper across the table. "We have received a formal complaint regarding a significant conflict of interest. It alleges that you used your role as Senior Risk Compliance Officer to improperly influence credit ratings and risk modeling for Caldwell Meridian Group for personal or familial gain." I stared. The claim was so inverted it was brilliant. I had refused to approve their fraudulent loan, yet they accused me of orchestrating the misconduct. If I reported the fraud now, I would appear vindictive. "You filed this?" I asked, voice steady despite shaking hands. "We cannot disclose the source at this stage," the lawyer said flatly. "Given your access to sensitive financial data, Marston Ridge has zero tolerance for nepotism or data manipulation." "I haven't manipulated anything," I said. "I refused to validate a fraudulent valuation last night. This is retaliation. I need to present evidence." Karen raised a hand. "The investigation is underway. Until it concludes, protocol requires that you be placed on immediate administrative leave without pay. Your laptop and company phone have been secured. Server access revoked. Your compliance certification is suspended pending the audit. The words hit like a shockwave. My career was obliterated. Without certification, I couldn't work in fintech, banking, or risk management anywhere. My father knew exactly where to strike. I will clear my name, I said, standing. And I expect an apology. Karen didn't look up. Leave your badge on the table. Ralph will escort you out. 10 minutes later, I was on the sidewalk. No personal items, just my coat, my purse, and vertigo. The city moved around me, indifferent. I walked 3 miles to Mara Benton's apartment. She was my closest friend from law school, a public defender who fought for the powerless. She didn't ask questions. She hugged me, led me inside, and handed me black coffee. I recounted everything: the dinner, the loan, the lockout, the HR ambush. They are thorough, Mara said, pacing. Sterling and Diane don't leave loose ends. If you have no income and no credibility, you can't hire a lawyer or stop the loan. I checked my accounts on her Wi-Fi. Savings, $6,000. Checking, overdrawn. In Charlotte, that might cover 2 months of ramen. Nothing for legal fees. I have enough cash for a week, maybe 2, I admitted. You're staying here, Mara said firmly. Free rent. We'll figure it out. A knock interrupted us. A courier delivered a thick envelope. Mara signed, opened it, and scanned the papers. Cease and desist. From your father's legal team. Any disclosure of privileged family or business information regarding Caldwell Meridian could result in a multi-million-dollar defamation suit. Aggressive, designed to intimidate. They're scared, I whispered. What? Mara asked. If they were secure, they wouldn't threaten me at a friend's house less than 24 hours after kicking me out. They are desperate for this loan. A message pinged on my phone. Trent, a junior underwriter at a rival firm, wrote, Caldwell Meridian is underwater. They have a shadow debt in Chicago due next week. If unpaid, they lose control. The bridge loan is urgent. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It all made sense. The inflated valuations, the urgency, my mother's panic. They weren't protecting their reputation. They were fighting for survival and willing to sacrifice me. Exhaustion hit. It was only 2 p.m., but I felt decades older. I curled up on Mara's sofa. Rest, she said. We strategized tonight. Don't answer the door. I drifted into a fitful sleep, dreaming of my grandfather, Walter. When you think you've lost, that's when you are most dangerous. You have nothing left to lose, he had said. I woke suddenly. Mara was gone. Shadows cast jagged patterns across the room. Helplessness pressed in. I needed action. I opened the suitcase my father had thrown onto the porch. Amid old clothes and shoes lay a leather-bound notebook, my grandfather Walter's journal. I had never read it, too painful. Now I did. Pages were full of numbers, sketches, reflections. The last line, shaky ink. When you are cornered, do not beg. Check the truth. Check the truth. I reached into my blazer pocket. Fingers met cold metal. The silver card. Heavy, tarnished, engraved with a mountain peak and the name Summit Heritage Trust, under which was Walter H. Caldwell and 10 embossed digits. No logos, no numbers. A magnetic strip on the back. Not a trinket. A key. The shadow debt, the fraud, my parents' desperation, all came into focus. Grandpa Walter had seen this coming. The wolves had arrived. I stood, gripping the card so tightly it bit my palm. I was done reacting. Tomorrow, I would walk into Summit Heritage Trust. I didn't know what I'd find. Maybe an empty account, maybe a safety deposit box. But I would uncover the truth. The silver card sat on Mara's kitchen counter, out of place among cereal boxes and legal briefs. I stared at it, recalling a decade of overlooking its value, assuming it's sentimental. Grandpa Walter had not left a useless object. Unlike my father, Sterling, who saw the world as a chessboard, Walter saw it as a story. He had prepared me for this moment, and now it was time to act. The scent of peppermint and old library books filled my senses, a smell that used to be my refuge whenever the air at home felt too heavy to breathe. I leaned against Mara's kitchen counter, eyes closed, letting the memory take over. 16 years earlier, I was 17, sitting in my grandfather Walter's study, crying because my mother had canceled my summer art program to force me into a finance internship. Walter had entered quietly, carrying a ledger. He sat across from me and opened the heavy book. Stop crying, Emery, he said, his voice gravelly but kind. Tears rust the machinery. Look here. He pointed to a column of figures. Numbers? I sniffled. No, he corrected. These are lies, a company pretending to be strong when it is weak. And this, he pointed to another column, is the truth. Small, ugly, but real. His blue gaze cut through my teenage self-pity. Your father fears numbers because he thinks they control him. Your mother worships them because she thinks they define her. You, Emery, need to understand them. Don't fear numbers. Fear the lies wrapped around them. That day he gave me the card. From a hidden compartment in his desk, he slid a heavy silver rectangle across the oak surface. Memorize this code, he whispered. 728419. We repeated it until it was etched into my memory. What is it for? I asked. An escape hatch, he said. His expression grew serious. Families like ours, we eat our young, politely with silver forks and linen napkins, but we consume them. If you are ever on the menu, betrayed, cornered, erased, you take this to Summit Heritage Trust. I laughed nervously. Spy movie, I said. I'm a man who knows his son, he replied sadly. 2 months later, he died suddenly. My parents mourned him with a lavish funeral, more for appearances than for farewell. In the chaos, I put the card away, telling myself Walter had been dramatic, my parents strict, but not monsters. Now at 33, I understood. He hadn't been dramatic. He had been prophetic. Mara entered the kitchen, dressed for court. She noticed me staring at the card. You're going, aren't you? She asked. I have to, I said. $6,000 to my name. My career is ruined, my reputation shredded. This is the only thread left to pull. She weighed the card in her hand, frowning. As your lawyer, not just your friend, if this connects to an undisclosed inheritance, and you access it, Sterling and Diane will go nuclear. They'll claim undue influence, tie you in probate for decades. They're already nuclear, I said, slipping the card into my pocket. They accused me of fraud yesterday. They kicked me out. If there's $500 in this account, I take it. I handed my license, scan complete. Fingerprint, he said, revealing a worn scanner. I hesitated, 17 years old when my grandfather died, but I extended my finger. Green light. Match confirmed. Access code, he said. Shielded keypad. 728419. Muscle memory took over. Enter. Silence. Then his reaction, frozen, eyes wide, hand hovering, not a glitch. A mind processing unexpected reality. Is there a problem? I asked. No, there is no problem, he said. The monitor revealed lines of code, assets, and a total value summary. $1.2 billion. The words didn't compute at first. Billion. Sovereignty. Freedom. Enough to buy Marston Ridge Solutions, fire the HR director, and still have wealth left over. He scrolled through assets, equity in logistics firms, municipal bonds, commercial real estate, all dividends reinvested, compounding for decades. You are the sole beneficiary. The trust is irrevocable. Blind. No one else in your family knows the scale, he said. I felt nausea. My parents had fought, lied, and destroyed me for $45 million, while I had $1.2 billion in my hands. He opened a drawer with iron keys and a red envelope sealed with wax. Your grandfather left instructions. You may access this only by presenting the silver card in person and entering the distress code. I shivered. 16 years ago, he knew I'd only use this in desperation. The envelope contained a handwritten note and a flash drive. Emery, they have pushed you out. Do not feel guilty. I saved it for the one person who values integrity. Money is both shield and sword. The flash drive contains records your father thought hidden. Use wisely. Love, Grandpa. Shock faded, replaced by clarity. Fear gone, sadness gone. I need access to the liquid funds, I said, voice steady. Of course, Elliot said. Black limitless card, immediate wire transfers if needed. That advisable to keep bulk assets here for security. Transfer $100,000 to my checking for immediate expenses, I said. And give me contacts for the best forensic accounting firm and aggressive trust attorney in the state, someone outside my father's network. Elliot smiled slightly. I know exactly who to call. M. Castillo, Gideon Pike. He respects your grandfather. Good, I said, taking the envelope and keys. Elliot paused at the door. For what it's worth, if the Caldwell Meridian Group rumors are true, this capital puts you in a unique position. You could save them. I launched an internal investigation. I didn't use the trust's funds to bribe anyone. I relied on my skills. I built a detailed timeline of the dinner, the coerced loan signature, and the retaliation that followed. I attached a time-stamped voicemail from my mother and an email from HR proving the disciplinary meeting had been scheduled before the supposed investigation even began. I submitted everything to the ethics board, and copied the CEO. 2 days later, I received a notification. The investigation was inconclusive, and my license remained intact. They didn't rehire me, but I wasn't seeking a job. I was building one. I registered a new company, Cedarline Compliance Studio. I rented a small shared office downtown, bought a laptop and printer, and set out to prove I was Emery Castillo, the expert, not just a trust fund heir. My first client was a mid-sized logistics firm that respected my refusal to sign a bad loan. "We need someone who knows how to say no," their CEO explained. I signed them for a standard consulting fee. When the first $4,000 check cleared, I felt more pride than I had looking at the billion-dollar trust balance. This $4,000 was mine, I had earned it. Meanwhile, Gideon was investigating my parents. 2 weeks after accessing the trust, I went to his office for a status update. The mood was grim. The forensic team had mapped the Caldwell Meridian debt structure, projecting a complex diagram on the wall. "It's worse than we thought," Gideon said, pointing to a cluster of red lines. "Your parents aren't just in debt. They're cross-collateralized to absurd levels. They used equity from the Meridian Harbor project, which doesn't exist yet, to cover Parkside renovation interest payments, and they used Parkside's deed to secure a bridge loan you were coerced to sign. It's a house of cards. If one lender calls a loan, the structure collapses. They've been solvent only on paper for 3 years." Sarah, the accountant, added, sliding a document toward me. A secondary mortgage on the family estate from 5 years ago, listing Walter H. Caldwell, dead for 11 years, as guarantor. "They didn't just forge signatures on business loans," Gideon explained. "They committed identity theft to refinance their own home. They've been siphoning funds from business accounts disguised as consulting fees to pay the mortgage through a shell company, Lumina Holdings." I felt cold fury. They were living in a mansion they couldn't afford, stealing from failing businesses, and using a dead man's name as a shield. Yet, they had the audacity to call me a failure. "Huh? What happens now?" I asked. "We wait," Gideon said. "The fraudulent signature has been flagged with the bank. We didn't make a public scene, just a formal dispute. The bank will audit internally. When they discover the guarantor is deceased, the credit line freezes, the bridge loan fails, and the dominoes fall." Back at Cedarline, I worked until 8 p.m., exhausted but clear-headed. Then my phone rang. It was my mother. I hadn't spoken to her since the voicemail and had blocked her number, but Gideon advised unblocking and recording all calls. I pressed record and answered, "Hello, Mother." I expected screaming, threats, or demands about Grandpa's signature. Instead, her voice was soft, trembling, and sweet, the martyr tone she used at charity galas. "Emery, darling, thank God you answered. I've been so worried about you." I stared at the office wall. Her manipulation was nearly impressive. "I'm fine, Diane," I said. "We've had some harsh words," she continued. "Your father, he's under pressure. We both are. Families fight, but they forgive. We want you home for dinner tomorrow. No business, no papers, just us. Please, Emery, let us make it right." The hairs on my neck stood up. They didn't miss me. They wanted the witness back, someone to control, to learn what I knew, or to pressure me into signing. "It's a trap. I can't come to dinner," I said calmly. "Emery, please." Her voice hardened slightly. "We're willing to overlook your outburst, welcome you back, even discuss your job." I almost laughed. They still believed they held the keys to my life. "I'm busy," I said. "A company?" she asked, sweetness cracking. "My company," I replied. "Good night, Mother." I hung up, my heart pounding, not with fear but anticipation. They were scared. I emailed the recording to Gideon, packed up my laptop, and left for my quiet apartment. For the first time, I wasn't the one under pressure. The ceasefire lasted 48 hours. Then my father called, voice tense, stripped of his usual smooth authority. "We received a bank notification regarding the audit on estate collateral," he said. I remained silent. Silence, Gideon had taught me, is a powerful response. "You're causing unnecessary alarms," Sterling continued. "We can stop the audit if you rescind the fraud alert." I cannot. The alert was based on factual discrepancies. Cannot, if the guarantor is deceased, the signature is invalid. That's the law. A long, shuddering exhale followed. "We are liquidating the Aspen property. We need a $5 million bridge loan. Just 10 days, 10% interest. Wire it, and we will forget this happened. We'll welcome you back and let you keep your compliance work." I leaned back. They didn't understand. They thought this was negotiation. I am not a bank, Sterling, I said coldly. If you have a proposal, send it to my attorney, Gideon Pike. He handles all my financial matters. The line went silent, then a scuffling sound. My mother, Diane, furious. You ungrateful wretch. We gave you life, money, everything, and you watch us drown. I am exactly like him, I said, and that's why you are not getting a cent. I hung up, hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but adrenaline. I saved the recording as Exhibit B and sent it to Gideon. Hours later, my logistics client called, hesitant. Emery, you're doing great work, but we have to pause the contract, he said. Sterling Caldwell insinuated you're under investigation for embezzlement. Hiring you risks our company being blacklisted by major lenders. It's a lie, I said. The ethics board cleared me. I can provide proof. I believe you, he said, but my line of credit is tied to your father's board seat. I can't risk it. I'm sorry. They were choking my opportunities, attacking my reputation because they couldn't touch the trust. Then came the notification. Mara texted a screenshot. Charlotte Insider, the city's elite gossip forum. The headline, disgraced daughter of local real estate mogul allegedly defrauds elderly grandfather's dormant estate. Sources claim Emery Castillo manipulated banking protocols to seize charity funds. Legal action pending. The post was carefully vague. Legally safe, but devastating. Comments were piling up. Rich kids stealing from each other, fired for cooking the books. They were framing me as the thief, projecting their own crimes onto me. My phone buzzed. It was Gideon. Come to my office. Use the service entrance. I grabbed my purse and left. Outside, I felt eyes on me. Across the street, a black sedan idled with tinted windows. A flash from the passenger window confirmed it. They were watching. I didn't run. I pulled out my phone, took a high-resolution photo of the license plate, and recorded a video of the car, narrating the time and location. The sedan peeled away, tires screeching. I drove to Gideon's office using a convoluted route to shake any tail. When I arrived, Gideon looked grim, Sarah pale. Sit down, Emery, he said, sliding a document across the table. It was a legal filing, an emergency injunctive relief motion. Your father has petitioned the probate court, claiming you are mentally incapacitated, Gideon explained. I laughed dryly. Incapacitated? Because I refused to lend him money. They were framing my exit from the family dinner, my cutoff of contact, and these fabricated fraud claims as evidence of a psychotic break. Gideon continued. He wants to be appointed your temporary conservator and freeze the trust assets immediately. My blood ran cold. If they convinced a judge I was insane, they could seize both me and the money. He can't do that. I'm a certified risk officer. I'm sane, I said. He has an affidavit, Gideon said, sliding another paper forward. It was from a psychiatrist I'd seen twice at 22 after a breakup. The affidavit claimed, patient exhibits narcissistic delusion and persecution complex. He bought a signature, I whispered. Yes, but that's not the worst part, Gideon said. We examined the bridge loan application I refused to sign. Sterling had submitted it anyway. Walk on the bottom line of the risk assessment certification, my name, and a signature almost identical to mine. He forged my signature, I said, voice shaking. A federal crime, a $45 million fraudulent loan. Yes, Gideon said. If the loan doesn't close by Friday, the shadow lenders holding the shell company debt will call in their markers. He gambled on bullying you into compliance before anyone checked. Prison time is possible, but only if we can prove the forgery before he freezes your assets. He pointed to the calendar. The emergency ex parte hearing was in 48 hours. If approved, my accounts at Summit Heritage would be locked. I couldn't pay Gideon, Mara, or access the evidence. Sterling would legally review the trust's contents and could destroy what Walter left. My phone buzzed. Mara. Emery, I'm in trouble. She explained the state bar had served her a notice. Someone claimed she was aiding financial fraud. Her boss told her to go home. They were attacking everyone around me. Don't resign. Don't apologize, I instructed. It's Sterling. He's scared. We were under assault, but I wasn't the victim. I looked at the forged document on Gideon's table. My father thought he could write my name and own me. We're going to that hearing Thursday, I said. We're not just defending my sanity. We're countersuing. We need to prove the forgery. Gideon outlined the plan. We needed the original document for ink analysis. Most likely, it was in my father's safe. But I remembered, the loan officer at First Carolina Bank. Trent, the analyst I had trained 5 years ago, had warned me. If Trent has the original file, we might get it to court. He risks his career, but hiding felony evidence risks prison. I'll get the file, I said. Careful, Gideon warned. A man who forges his daughter's signature has lost all moral boundaries. He never had them, I muttered, walking out. I dialed Trent. Voicemail. Thursday morning, I go to court to expose them. You can stand with me or with them. 1 hour to decide. The black sedan was gone, but I knew they were watching. Let them. At Gideon's office, our conference room looked like a tactical command center. Whiteboards mapped the decay of their finances. Wednesday afternoon, less than 24 hours before the hearing, I traced a timeline. Meridian Harbor Project, Lumina Holdings, misappropriated funds. Then I found it, the Hope Haven Initiative. My parents had laundered $6 million meant for veterans housing through their own company, marking up materials at 400% of market value. The project stalled, leaving a mud pit. They used veterans as a shield to steal $6 million, I said. Gideon's face was unreadable. Wire fraud, tax fraud, grand larceny. Tomorrow we can stop the conservatorship and expose them to federal authorities. Are you ready? I looked at the photos. They sent themselves. I'm just turning on the lights. Gideon nodded and activated a protective protocol with Summit Heritage. All trust interactions recorded, any attempt by my father to access information logged as hostile. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Miss Castillo? Arthur Penhaligon, former accounts payable head, had a USB drive with emails showing my father's instructions to forge signatures, including Grandpa's, and promise kickbacks to bank managers. I met him in a park. He handed over the drive. I did this because your grandfather helped my wife when insurance denied treatment. You're the only one left who is like him. Here's a polished, professional version of your conclusion, tightened for maximum impact while keeping your dramatic tension and pacing intact. Back at the office, we plugged the USB drive into the forensic computer. Sarah pointed to an email from Sterling. Get the scan of her signature from HR. Overlay it on First Carolina documents. Make it look real. We need that money by Friday, or we are dead. Checkmate, I said. Gideon suggested leaking it publicly, but I refused. We don't fight gossip. We win on the record, in court. Mara interrupted. A video of my mother was trending, soft, trembling, claiming heartbreak and mental health struggles, begging me to come home. It was manipulative, public, and precise. A masterclass in weaponizing motherhood. Comments poured in, rich kids stealing, a cruel daughter, a monster. I felt frustration, not sadness. She was twisting truth to attack me. Don't engage, Gideon said. This is bait. She wants you to post angrily to look unstable. I saved the video. Why? Mara asked. Because she just admitted on record that she thinks I'm mentally ill. Tomorrow, when we prove I'm sane and expose the fraud, this becomes proof she perjured herself. A defamation case worth millions. The city lights flickered on outside the window. Let her cry, I whispered. She'll need the practice for when the handcuffs go on. At 7 p.m., the office phone rang sharply. Gideon answered. Pike, he said, listening. Then, put him on speaker. Mr. Pike, this is Elliot Vaughn at Summit Heritage Trust, the urgent voice said. What's happened, I asked. A level 0 security event just occurred, Elliot explained. Someone submitted a physical access request to the central vault remotely, using a master override, the executive key. Walter Caldwell had two, one destroyed, one with him. Someone is trying to transfer the Meridian Harbor deed from the trust to a holding company. I froze. Wait, why is the Meridian Harbor deed in my trust? I thought my father owned it. He never did, Elliot said. Walter bought the land 20 years ago and put it in the trust. Your father has been building on land he doesn't own, using a forged deed to get permits. The system flagged the transfer because of the protection protocol you activated, Elliot continued, but the executive key starts a 24-hour countdown. Only the primary beneficiary, Ms. Castillo, can stop it physically at the bank. I looked at Gideon. It's a trap, Mara said. Night, empty streets. He could be waiting. Then he won't just be waiting for me, Gideon said. Private security. Emery goes in with protection. I grabbed the USB drive. Let's go. The armored car moved through the cold night. My mother's video looped on my phone. We just want you safe. Safety wasn't the priority. Victory was. At Summit Heritage, Elliot explained the deadlock. A digital transfer using Walter Caldwell's key had triggered a 24-hour hold. I had to be physically present, place my hand on the scanner, and verbally assert authority. Suddenly, the bank doors slammed open. Sterling Caldwell entered first, tuxedo sharp, followed by Diane in an evening gown and three high-profile witnesses: the CEO of First Carolina Bank, a city councilman, and a donor. "There she is!" my mother screamed theatrically. Gideon positioned himself as a shield. "You are trespassing on private property," he warned. Sterling filmed anyway. "We are here to save our daughter. Look at her eyes. She is unstable." Diane threw herself against the counter. "Emery, you're not yourself. Just come home." I assessed them calmly. "You want witnesses?" I said into Sterling's camera. "Let's show the truth about the trust." Ignoring Gideon's warnings, I stepped forward. "You say I'm unstable. You say I'm stealing." "The red envelope behind the counter contains Walter Caldwell's instructions. You've crossed the line." "I don't know what you're talking about," Diane said. "Then open it," I challenged. Elliot placed the wax-sealed envelope on the mahogany counter. The seal spoke volumes: history, authority, judgment. My father recognized it immediately. "This is theater," Sterling shouted. "You asked for witnesses," I said. "Open it." Elliot broke the seal. Inside, a notarized affidavit detailed Sterling and Diane's decades-long deception, forged signatures, inflated assets, and collusion. Whispers erupted. Sterling lunged. The councilman and CEO watched, horrified. Elliot read the final instructions aloud. "Any coercion by Sterling or Diane mandates immediate FBI notification." Sterling collapsed to his knees. Diane stood frozen, her mask shattered. "Is the hearing tomorrow still necessary?" I asked Gideon. "No," he said. "They won't be making it." FBI agents arrived to take Sterling into custody while restraining Diane. I authorized the override on the deed transfer. The land was secure. "Let's go home," I said to Gideon and Mara. Rain had stopped. The air was clean. Silence was full of possibility. I signed the trust documents. "Emery Castillo, my signature firm," Gideon confirmed. "It is done. Assets secured. Your name is clear." We discussed the company. "With this capital, you could restructure, rebuild, hire the right people," Gideon said. I decided to burn the Caldwell Meridian Group to the ground and build a new, the Walter Group. Mara hugged me, tears in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. I stepped into the night. 3 days ago, I had a suitcase and no future. Now I had $1.2 billion, the truth in my pocket, and freedom. I checked my phone. A message from Mr. Henderson. "I saw the news. Can we meet tomorrow?" I deleted it. I needed no one's permission. I was Emery Castillo. I wasn't just surviving, I was free. If you want, I can also turn your full story into a tight cinematic YouTube script with timestamps, scene cues, and dialogue formatting, perfect for a narrated or acted storytime video. It would preserve all the tension and make it flow visually for viewers. Do you want me to do that?